If you've managed projects for any length of time, you've probably realized a dark secret. Traditional tracking is often a complete illusion. You look at a status report, everything seems perfectly fine, and then bam, out of nowhere, the wheels completely fall off. So today we're tearing down that illusion in this explainer. We're going to look at standards from the Project Management Institute and the GPM to really uncover the early warning systems that diagnose true project health.
Seriously, ask yourself, why does so many projects fail, bleed money, and just completely miss their critical deadlines? I mean, we've all been in the trenches, right? We know those pain points. It's that sudden budget drain that nobody forecasted, or that one missed milestone that somehow throws the entire portfolio off track. And look, the root of this failure usually isn't bad intentions. It's just bad visibility. We rely on these flawed metrics that basically only tell us how much time has passed or how much money we spent. But those numbers alone, they don't actually tell us what we achieved.
And that brings us to the core problem. It's the classic what we planned versus what actually happened. When you compare the ideal, beautiful plan with the harsh reality of execution, there's almost always a massive disconnect. If you're out there just tracking your budget spent against time elapsed, you're literally flying blind. Think about it. You might be perfectly on budget, but if you've only completed half the actual work, yeah, you're in deep trouble. We need a much sharper diagnostic tool.
Section 1. The EVM Framework Explained, an Early Warning System.
So think of Earned Value Management, or EVM, as your project's vital signs monitor. It really boils down to a trio of core metrics. First up, you have planned value, or PV. That's essentially the authorized budget for your scheduled work. Second is earned value, or EV, which is the objective measure of the work you've actually performed. And third, actual cost, AC, which is quite literally what you just spent. Tracking these three together is basically how you strip away all the noise and reveal the unfiltered truth of where your project stands.
Now, when you translate these numbers visually, it gives you an instant pulse check. Imagine a solid line tracking across a chart. That's your earned value, what you've actually achieved. Then you've got your planned value and your actual cost plotted alongside it. By tracking these metrics over time, the visual gaps between them instantly act as early warning signs. You can literally see, plain as day, if you're burning cash faster than you're actually earning value.
Section 2. The Smart Building Case, a real-world application.
Let's actually ground this with a real-world scenario. Let's say we're building a state-of-the-art smart building. To establish some concrete stakes, the project team identifies specific risks. Things like unpredictable monsoons turning the entire construction site into a mud pit, or, my personal favorite, installing highly advanced smart toilets before realizing there's absolutely no actual plumbing in the building. Stuff happens, right? So they integrate this risk directly into their EVM baselines by establishing a strict $50,000 contingency reserve. And to be clear, this is not a slush fund to hide mistakes. It's a precisely calculated buffer to keep everyone fully accountable. Section 3. Decoding the warning signs. Finding the root cause. So, when things inevitably start going wrong, how do we decode the symptoms? Well, we use a diagnostic matrix. Imagine mapping the schedule performance index on one axis and the cost performance index on the other. If our project falls into that dreaded quadrant where we're both behind schedule and over budget, we immediately have to stop and ask, wait, was the project wildly underestimated, or did we encounter some massive, unexpected software bug? This kind of framework diagnoses the exact ailment our smart building is suffering from.
And once we identify those symptoms, we absolutely have to act, right? If we discover we severely underestimated the effort, we might need to make the tough call to actively de-scope the project just to save it. If we're simply under-resourced, then we immediately authorize more personnel. Because EVM isn't just about reporting the bad news. It's a tool for forcing management to make those tough, corrective decisions way before it's too late.
Section 4. Forecasting the future, calculating exposure.
Now this brings us to that slightly panicked, very common question that literally every project sponsor and manager asks the second they see cost variances emerging. They say, what is the remaining work actually going to cost us? They want to know the total financial exposure. They want to know for sure, will the project be over or under budget at completion, and by exactly how much?
Well, EVM removes that guesswork entirely. Reliable forecasts don't come from crossing your fingers. They come directly from comparing our accomplished performance against a really sound baseline. We don't rely on gut feelings. We definitely don't rely on overly optimistic promises from contractors who are already 2 weeks behind. Instead, we use hard trend data to mathematically calculate the exact efficiency we need to maintain to actually hit our goals.
Section 5. Measuring sustainable impacts. Sustainable management.
But here's the thing. Delivering true modern value isn't just about finishing on time and under budget anymore. Think about the juxtaposition between your typical EVM baseline for financial performance and a broader, holistic sustainability framework. For anyone entering modern project management, you have to bridge these two worlds. You literally must apply the exact same rigorous mathematical methodology that you use for budget tracking to managing your project's environmental and social impacts.
And this is exactly where the P5 impact analysis comes in. It's a comprehensive framework perfectly designed to explain sustainability concepts for beginners, but powerful enough for experts to collect data on the social, environmental, and economic consequences of your work. Think back to our smart building case. Just as we use EVM to catch a nasty budget overrun early, we use P5 to realize early on that our supposedly green building is, inadvertently draining the local town's water supply. It allows us to actively reduce harm and pivot our entire strategy before the real damage is done.
So, moving from concept to action, how do we actually do this? Well, a sustainable project manager doesn't operate in a vacuum. They actively hunt for stakeholder input. They ensure absolute transparency, which means no hiding the bad environmental data, right? They communicate their findings openly and use these tools to implement responses that actually regenerate the community. It really demands continuous learning and, frankly, unshakable ethics. Which brings us to our final thought for this explainer. Look at your own dashboards tomorrow morning. Are you tracking just your budget and your schedule? Or are you tracking your project's true, sustainable footprint on the world? Mastering EVM ensures your project survives, but integrating that P5 impact analysis, that ensures your project was actually worth completing in the first place. You have to measure what truly matters. Thanks for joining me.